Why is education important for our young people to take more seriously?
I think because without it, you're pretty much at the mercy of the forces around you, whether they are, people or events or economic forces, money, lack of money, whatever. And not that education magically cures those things, but I think it helps train you to be a critical thinker, first of all. But then it also trains you to be confident in confronting things, in confronting problems around you, confronting problems that you foresee. And it's from wherever. You could be working at McDonald's to, Barack Obama, the President of the United States. Whatever you do, if you're not educated in what you're doing, you're sort of helpless. And I think that's something anyone can pretty much understand. And I think even the youngest of us understands that they don't want to be helpless, I think.
What have been some of your most valued experiences as a writer, Brian?
Definitely attending Howard University from 2001 to 2005. I'd say that was probably the chapter of my life that so far has most influenced my writing. Well, actually, I was, as I said, that I thought about my 9th grade English teacher, Belinda Green, actually, and I had to rewind before I get to Howard, I think. She was probably the first person who took a genuine pride, I guess, in my writing, outside of my family, and challenged me in terms of skillfully to like hone, my grammar and essay structure and things like that. She's one of the few teachers, I think, who really directly challenged me, directly pushed me. And then when I got to Howard, I think I was challenged more on a content, social level, especially coming from a place like Minnesota. I think sometimes it was a little easier to get away with writing about certain things or sticking to certain topics. Being African American in Minnesota in school, I think it's easy to be special, I think. And then when you get to Howard and everyone's African American, you're challenged to diversify your subject matter and your content outside of, maybe just talking about some obvious race issues or things like that. Challenged to be a little more imaginative because race is sort of taken for granted. It's no longer this fantastic issue to write about because everybody has experienced it.
Mr. Casoro, could you trace your family history back as far as you can recall?
Starting with my father's side, everybody's pretty much from Minnesota. My dad's dad is Clayton Hughes. Dad's mom is Lorna Hughes. My grandpa's father was Percy Hughes Sr. My grandpa's brother was Percy Hughes Jr. Then actually me and my dad found out about my great-great-grandfather on my grandpa's side of the family. We were at the Minnesota Historical Society maybe 4 years ago. And it turns out he was from Jamaica actually and migrated to Minnesota directly, which was interesting. Married, was an entrepreneur up in northern Minnesota. Actually was wrongly convicted of manslaughter, I guess, and was sentenced to jail and was pardoned about 20 years after. So that would be probably as far back as we've encountered so far on my dad's side. My mother's side, my mom's Kasoro. She was born in Nairobi, Kenya. Her father was born in Fort Portal, Uganda. Her mother was also born in Fort Portal, Uganda, Margaret Kasoro. Her father was Asman Kasoro. My grandfather remarried a woman by the name of Sada Kasoro from Tanzania, from Arusha, Tanzania. And that's about as far back as I'm familiar with my mom's side.
What are the main differences between your generation, under 30, and elders in Black America?
I think our elders are a generation that experienced needing each other in a real obvious way, I think. And my generation is a generation that hasn't really experienced that. So we are, in my generation, we are the African American community because we've always been the African American community, I think. Whereas like my father and my mother's generation, they were, the Black community because they needed to be the Black community in a real sense. They really appreciated the idea of community, the idea of needing each other, I think, in a realer sense. And I'm not sure that we appreciate it as much. It's a lot harder to appreciate that, I think, when you're in a time and you were raised in a time where anything seems possible without needing, a helping hand from this person or this person over here. I think we see we can do what we want to do for all intents and purposes, I think, on our own. I think that's the main difference, if there was any, between my generation and other generation that came before us. How that is gonna affect our generation and our growth and our development into elders, I don't know. That's gonna be interesting, I think. I think we're gonna have to talk about that among ourselves, truth be told, and figure out if we want to identify the ways that we need each other, the new ways that our generation needs each other. It might not be the same way that, Black folks needed each other in the 60s. There might be new ways that we need each other, and I think we have to continue to talk and identify those ways that we need each other.
There is one thing missing in today's African American community that you've observed. What would that be?
Probably some kind of organized unity. That's probably the thing that causes me the most thought or frustration, I guess, is that I see a huge amount of potential, but especially my generation, I think we're a generation that has like infinite options, and there's not an obvious, as obvious of like an oppressive presence to force us to, kind of huddle together, like if you're in the cold or something. So I think that's the number one issue, I think, especially for my generation, I think, that I see.
What does Brian Kasoro want to be doing in 5 years?
5 years. I'd be 30. That's a funny
Okay,
thought.
after you celebrate your birthday,
Right.
then what do you want to be doing?
Well, I want to be celebrating my birthday, which takes for granted that I'm here still. I want. I see myself continuing to contribute to the growth of the Liberator. But if I'm not, either for a reason that's, someone else is taking the reins, or for whatever reason, I definitely want to be doing something similar, something that I love to do, something that I'm passionate about. I definitely don't want to have any regression in that sense. I want to keep doing things that I'm passionate about and doing more things that I'm passionate about. I would like to feel a stronger sense of community 5 years from now. And I think those are the main two things. If I can be alive and have a strong community and be doing something that I'm passionate about and that's of service to that community, then I think I'll be fulfilled.
Who is the person you admire the most, living or not?
That's hard. I mean, I would probably lump my parents together into like one person. Because like I think, as a man, my dad has certain things that my mom doesn't have, and vice versa. So I don't, it's almost like apples and oranges in a way. But then when you put them together, I think it's they're probably like, in my eyes, like the perfect, complete person, you know what I mean?
We're at the end of 2008, and it has been said by some that the recent election of the 44th president means that blacks have arrived. Is there a pitfall, in your opinion, to this historical election of Barack Obama in the black community?
Definitely. Actually, I just thought of something interesting when you asked that. At first I was going to say, well, I still want to say this. I think the obvious pitfall is that, whenever you celebrate too loudly or, too much, you risk overlooking what's going on while you're celebrating. So I think, if the election of Obama means that, people feel there's no more work left to do, then it's something that is harmful in that way. But if it means that it inspires people to do more work or to continue the work they're doing or reinvigorates them, then I think it's positive. To me, that's like the obvious pitfall, is that, you don't want to get so hyped up emotionally that you forget the serious work that still needs to be done. But then there's another pitfall, I think, and that's even in being critical, I think, a lot of us have to understand that there's a pitfall in being overly critical too. In that if we're so busy always, scrunching our eyes and
Making
criticizing.
a list and all that kind of stuff?
Say that again.
Making a list and
Right, yeah.
checking it off. And
if we're so busy doing that, then we don't, we let those moments of victory, whether small or big or whatever, we let them go without appreciating them, you know what I mean? So I was actually, just before I got over here, I watched this music video, Nas, this rapper Nas, and he put this speech by James Baldwin in it. And Baldwin, the guy asked him, are you optimistic or pessimistic about America? And he said, I'm forced to be optimistic because I'm alive, But I think it goes to being able to step back and say, regardless of what the world is right now, regardless of how, much we need to criticize it and find what's wrong with it in order to improve it, I think we still, the fact that we're alive and that we choose to be alive every day and that we're given life every day and we choose to accept it, we're not out here committing mass suicide or anything. So I think in that sense, we have to remember that. I think that, like, if we're still choosing to live, in a way, that's an optimistic thing. It's an optimistic action, even subconsciously, I think, to still try and keep going. And I think it does us good to appreciate that. So I think the same thing with Obama. I think we definitely got to criticize it, but we should also appreciate the, the small victory of the moment too.
What does Brian Casoro enjoy the most about today's African American community?
Probably the honesty. I want to maybe rawness. Maybe honesty is probably the better word. But when I'm among African American people, black folks, I feel the freedom to just be, my whole self, and I feel that I get the same thing in return in, maybe 90% of the circumstances. And it's not to say that I'm not myself outside of the African American community, but I think you have to be conscious of being yourself sometimes. And other people are conscious of who you are and how you're different from them, etc. But when you're around your own people, I think there's just all that's taken for granted, and then you could just be who you are. And I think that's what I appreciate most.